Healthy watersheds are essential to Hawaii's clear-flowing streams and our vibrant nearshore coral reefs. Our forests for life create important connections between high mountain forests and lowland and coastal waters, so integral to Hawaiian life, and the oft-heard concept of mauka to makai.
Our water that we drink today essentially came from 25 years ago, where it fell from the sky through rain and percolated through our geological stratus. And by the time it gets to us, it's roughly about 25 years later. So it has had 25 years to filter through our geological makeup from sand filtration, rocks, and so forth.
This relationship maintains a beautiful balance, one that is key to the lovely environment more than 1 million people call home and tens of millions visit each year. This is a balance that is easily broken, but one that can be restored and maintained with the help of the watershed protectors. Molokai is an island of two tales, of two distinct sides. Along the Friendly Isles south slopes, you can clearly see the delicate relationship between Mauka forests and Makai coastal waters. These slopes were once covered by a unique shrubland, and a forest found only on leeward sides of the islands. On Molokai's north shore, the world's highest sea cliffs frame mostly healthy forests, spared from goats that will devour everything in sight, like they have done just a few miles away.
This landscape for me has changed dramatically. I grew up in this part of Molokai, a little bit west of here, and I hunted these areas from about 12 years old. And this is all, we always called this the moonscape because there was no vegetation. Lots of goats, thousands of goats.
You can see just a few patches of green down in the gulches.
You know, for years I've heard people say we got to do something about our eroding slopes.
This barren land, stripped of its native vegetation, lies vulnerable to rain events where tons of dirt and silt flow freely downhill and onto the reefs.
The South Shore Fringing Reef on Molokai, USGS has said that it's the longest continuous fringing reef, not just in Hawaii, but in the United States. And so what that means to me, in non-scientific terms, is that that's one of Molokai's greatest food resources. Everybody goes on the reef to collect fish, octopus, or we call it he'e, shellfish like crab and lobster, limo. Limo is seaweed that people use for their food, and just a whole variety of fish species that people like to collect and eat. So it definitely is our greatest food resource here at Molokai. I mean, I can see people wanting to protect their property, but the county should...
The Watershed Partnership on Molokai and 9 others on 4 other islands work to control erosion, fence critical watershed areas to keep out goats, pigs, cows, and deer, and revegetate the forests with native trees and shrubs.
Fencing is a big piece of it. Fencing off the invasive ungulates that can come in and do damage to the native vegetation. And then also reforestation and replanting of native vegetation and a lot of weed management to get rid of the invasive species.
It's been almost 9 years since we started this goat control, and I'm amazed at the vegetation recovery that's going on. Now it's not a moonscape anymore, it's green. There's actually shrubs. There never used to be any shrubs on this, let alone some of it are becoming trees. None of this existed when we, growing up as a child and before 2009. I fished all my life on this reef, and every winter it used to always be red with sedimentation. Today we very rarely see that. It's because, as you know, vegetation holds the soil, the rivers flow cleaner, we get less sedimentation.
The goat removal program has initiated real positive change. More native plants, less erosion, and less sediment to end up below on the fringing reef.
First of all, the goats aren't being removed in their entirety. The goal of these management plans that each watershed partnership has and puts in place is to pick the areas that make the most sense for everybody to manage and to preserve and keep the ungulates, the goats, and the other ungulates out from. And those areas typically are inaccessible to most people anyway, and they are high up in the watershed, so they have they're preserving the highest recharge function to our water supply. The main thing is that they are not all being removed, just in select areas that make the most sense to conservationists, to hunters, to community members, really to all of us. So we're really weighing a lot of different interests and values in order to, again, go for the common mission of protecting our water supply and preserving what's left of our native forests.
When watershed forests are protected and cared for in a Pono manner, native cloud catchers like the Ohia Lehua and the majestic koa help capture water that begins as a drip from their leaves, down into the ground or into streams, and ultimately to the coast and the oceans. These trees capture and slow down deluges of rain with their rough, slow-growing bark. Their intricate roots help keep soil in place. No trees, and the soil has a path to free flow downhill into the ocean.
So this smaller one here?
Okay,
and that
yeah.
bigger one, yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
right about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
smaller fish pond
Uh-huh.
to that to the stream bed.
Mm-hmm.
On Little Molokai,
This whole
there's
area
the
you
start
can
of
get
something
from-
big.
from-
The marriage of modern science with knowledge of best practices passed down through generations from the original Hawaiian stewards expands beyond these shores. Building and learning, sharing knowledge across the islands. Another way is being forged to malama our forests for life.
It is the right time, I would say. Sure, the right time would have been decades ago, but we still have native forests that can be protected. We still have a healthy water supply that can be protected and enhanced. And so it's not too late.